Well, the 2015 NFL Draft officially begins tonight, April 30th, 2015 at 8 p.m. Eastern, and by God, I can't wait. Mercifully, it is finally here. So I decided to do one more NFL Draft Q&A. Might as well. I probably will do one, honestly, after the 2015 NFL Draft is all done and over, because that way we'll have known how things played out, and that way I can give more opinions on more things. So make sure after the 2015 NFL Draft is completely over, you tweet me your questions for that next NFL Draft Q&A. But let's get started with this one. ORH82 asks, most people see Kevin White as a one-hit wonder. Why does your evaluation of him differ? Well, in a way, he kind of was a one-year wonder at West Virginia. I don't dispute that. But there are a couple of reasons why I rate him as the number one receiver in this class over somebody like, let's say, an Amari Cooper. Number one, I think he's bigger and more physical than Amari Cooper. Number two, I believe he's actually faster than Amari Cooper, not just in 40 times, but based off of what I observed on his film. While he's not quite the route runner of an Amari Cooper, I think Kevin White has a bigger catch radius, which I think is very important in today's NFL for a number one wide receiver. And he's also a guy that has the ability to go and make that big-time spectacular play more than Amari Cooper can. There's just a lot of reasons. When I look at Kevin White, I see a lot of Julio Jones in his game, and that's why I view him as the number one receiver in this class. And Omer H82 also asked for his beloved Raiders, what positions should the Raiders target in each round to get the most bang out of this class? Well, for me, in the first round, they should be targeting wide receiver. Amari Cooper, Kevin White. Whichever one they like better or whichever one is there. If both of them are there, then choose one. You probably can't go wrong. If Cooper is already gone, they should just not overthink themselves and take Kevin White. Or if they've got the opportunity to trade back into the later portion of the top 10 and still take a Devontae Parker, maybe that's a way for them to go as well. They need a number one wide receiver in the worst way. And I know there's a lot of talk about Leonard Williams or even a guy like a Dante Fowler. No. You just took Derek Carr. He really doesn't have much in the way of weapons on that side of the ball. If you want Derek Carr to succeed, you must help him. And the best way to help him is give him some help on the offensive side of the ball. I personally think that the Raiders should be exploring, looking into drafting two wide receivers in the first 3 to 4 rounds. I think they should be looking at running back somewhere in either round 2 or round 3, maybe an offensive tackle. They do need some help on the defensive line, both at tackle and end, but those are positions they can maybe address a little later in the draft, although it wouldn't surprise me if they did spend a day 2 pick on one of those positions. Hell, they might end up spending the 4th overall pick on a guy like Leonard Williams, for all we know. We'll find out tonight, I guess. Bruins fan 215, thoughts on Ifo Ekpe-Olumu? He seemed to be a fringe first-rounder, and now he's like a late third-round guy. Are injuries the only concern? I think injuries are a concern, a big concern, but not the only concern. For me, for a while now, I've had Ifo Ekpe-Olumu as more of a 4th to 5th round type of prospect than a fringe first or second or even third round prospect. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one is the injury concerns. Talk about a guy, I believe, with a shoulder issue and, just other things. He seems to be constantly dinged and nicked up. You're looking at the fact that he's not the biggest guy, but he doesn't play with the same type of physicality of, let's say, a Jason Verrett. I don't think he's as good in run support. I don't think he's as physical as a Verrett in terms of man-to-man press coverage. I think Ifo Ekpe-Olumu will be one of those day 3 guys that if he can stay healthy, will be a productive player at the NFL level. I just think he will be a productive slot nickel-dime type of guy more so than a number 2 or even number 1 corner, and that's why he'll drop to day 3 of the draft, in my opinion. Chairman 015. Who do you think will be the players that fall under the radar, go to a lower first-round team, and outshines other guys that were taken ahead of them? Excuse me. A few guys, let's see here. In the lower portion of the first round, Shane Ray, I think, will go somewhere in the 20s. And as a result, he could be a guy that far outplays his draft position. A guy like La'el Collins, assuming that whatever is going on off the field ends up being free and clear for him, so to speak. I think you're looking at a guy in La'el Collins that might get drafted in the 2nd or even 3rd round because of the uncertainty of what's going on. He's a guy that is a first-round prospect, and he's a guy that could far outplay his draft position. Cedric Ogbuehi from Texas A&M, he has a shot to me to go late in round number 1, even coming off of the ACL injury. But if he's a guy that goes in round number 2, he could end up outplaying his draft slot. Several of the running backs, such as Duke Johnson, T.J. Yeldon, Jay Ajayi, could fit into that category. Tevin Coleman as well. Several of the wide receivers, guys like Devin Smith, Devin Funchess, Nelson Aguilar. There's a lot of guys, Tyler Lockett, lots of guys at a lot of different positions that could end up outplaying those that were taken above them. And if some of those guys, your question was more about lower first round, but I've talked about guys in the second round. Kevin McAllister, 6. When Pace finally flames out as GM, and you know he will Ted Phillips finally be ousted from Hell? Well, at least say this in Ryan Pace's defense so far. I've liked his philosophy and his approach in free agency. He hasn't gone buck wild. He hasn't gotten ridiculous. A lot of one-year type of prove-it deals to fill short-term holes, knowing that this team needs to be rebuilt. And based off of the free agent signings that I've seen, that makes me confident that Ryan Pace somebody finally understands that this organization needs a complete and total rebuild. But if he did flame out, and he very well could, I don't think Ted Phillips would finally be ousted from Alice Hall. Hatley flamed out. Angelo flamed out. Emery failed out. And yet Phillips is still there. So what would make Ryan Pace any different? Fourth time's the charm? I don't think so in this case. One thing that should concern Bears fans just a little bit about this 2015 NFL draft is that this is Pace's first draft as a general manager. Recent track record of Bears general managers in the first draft isn't good. Mark Hatley in 98, Jerry Angelo 2002, Phil Emery 2012. Look back at those draft classes and say to yourself, should I be all that happy, excited, or confident about what this guy is going to do with his first Bears draft? Good thing for the Bears is that I think the board breaks well for them in terms of areas that he could address in the first 3 to 4 rounds. So he has more chances to succeed than some of those previous guys, but that should be concerning. And then he also asked, why are so many people crazy about Danny Shelton? He's a 2-down defensive tackle, not worth the top 10 pick. Well, 1, I dispute that he's not worth the top 10 pick. 2, more especially, I dispute this notion that he's a 2-down defensive tackle. If you actually watch the film at Washington, I don't see how you could come up with the surmising that Danny Shelton is just a 2-down defensive tackle. I don't get it. I don't see it. Those sacks didn't totally happen by accident. He didn't just fall and stumble into all of them. This is a guy that is more athletic than he's given credit for. Here's a guy that's tremendous in pursuit. Here's a guy that has some pass rush ability. Yes, pass rushing is not going to be the way he makes his living in the NFL. I'll grant you that. But he's not a guy you have to take off the field necessarily in third down and passing situations. So I dispute this notion that he's a 2-down defensive tackle, and I think if you watch the film at Washington in depth, there's no way you could come up with that conclusion. My opinion, anyways. It's Johnny Russo. Will Ali Marpet make it in the NFL, and where will he be drafted? Only time will tell if he'll ultimately make it, but where will he be drafted? I think his range begins about Minnesota in round 2 on through to the middle portion of round 3. I think somewhere between the middle of round 2 and round 3 is where he gets drafted. He's either the first or second guard taken. It's either him or maybe Laken Tomlinson from Duke. Yeah, I think that's kind of his range at this point. Saving Ryan's privates. Why do the Vikings feel the need to take a cornerback in the first round when they already have 3 solid starters? Well, if they don't like any of the offensive linemen at number 11, and the top 3 wide receivers are already off the board at number 11, where else should they be looking to draft? You're talking about them playing in a division where they face Green Bay twice a year, who have Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, and Devontae Adams. A Detroit team that has Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate, and a Bears team that has Alshon Jeffrey and perhaps a first-round pick like Amari Cooper, maybe Kevin White. There's good reason for it. I dispute the notion that the Vikings have 3 quality starters at corner. Xavier Rhodes is a stud on the outside, but Captain Munnerlyn is better suited in the slot. A guy like Trey Waynes or Kevin Johnson makes a world of sense from them, especially if they peel back from number 11 and are still able to get him. If that's the way the board breaks, they shouldn't reach for an inferior talent. You can argue corner is a need. It might not be a top flight need, but it's somewhere where they can take a talent and that guy could be helpful. And let's face it, you can never have enough corners in the NFL, and especially if you're playing in the NFC North, it's a good idea to have your fair share of corners. Peter Kuzmenko, most underrated prospects, and do you think San Diego will trade up for Marcus Mariota? I'll address the second one first. No, I don't think so. I think if a trade's going to happen with Phillip Rivers, it'll come next offseason, more than it would this offseason. Because, again, part of my whole thing is that how do you put together a compensation package? Like if you're the Chargers, would you really trade Rivers just for the number 2 overall pick in this draft? Furthermore, would you really trade Phillip Rivers in the 17th overall pick or maybe your second-round pick to move up to number 2? I'm not trading Phillip Rivers straight up for Marcus Mariota. I'm also not giving up more than Phillip Rivers just to move up to 2 to take Marcus Mariota. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But in terms of your underrated prospects, I think Danny Shelton is somewhat underrated because, again, there's that perception of him being a two-down type of guy. I think a wide receiver like Devin Smith out of Ohio State has kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Tyler Lockett from Kansas State. I think several of the running backs. TJ Yeldon is one that stands out to me, screaming that he's underrated. David Johnson from Northern Iowa. I mean, there's just a lot of guys. Vikings fan 5555. Am I crazy for thinking Danny Shelton is a better prospect than Leonard Williams? No, because I agree with you. I don't think it's leaps and bounds better, but I do think he is better. I think his effort is more consistent. I think he's a more dominant run stopper than Leonard Williams is a pass rusher. And I think Danny Shelton is a better pass rusher than Leonard Williams is a run defender. So that makes Danny Shelton the top defensive tackle on my board. Mike 18 Coronado. Is Marcus Peters worth the risk for my Steelers in round number 1? Yes. Yes. Yes! He's a cornerback. Cornerbacks play in the secondary. The Steelers secondary has been old and boo-boo for years and is even worse and older and more boo-boo, more especially boo-boo now. If it's a corner, it's worth the risk in round number 1 for the Steelers, period. Alex Shirley 10. Is Marcus Mariota a bad fit for the Titans offense, and would you knock the Titans if they traded their pick? I probably would knock the Titans if they traded that pick because, we could sit there and talk about, look at the draft pick call that they got. Well, who's to say the Titans wouldn't know what the fuck to do with the draft pick call to begin with, number 1. Number 2, just because they got a great draft pick call doesn't really mean anything because in 3 years we could be looking back and be like, oh, they got this guy, this guy, this guy. They're clearly the winners, yet they still haven't made the playoffs, and they still lack an identity as an organization because they don't have a quarterback and they're still looking for one. See the St. Louis Rams. This is one of these situations where you gamble on the talent and you gamble on the position because you know what can happen if you don't have that guy or if you miss on that guy. Well, I don't think you're going to miss on Marcus Mariota. And as far as him being a bad fit for the offense, if Ken Whisenhunt is a quality offensive mind like many proclaim him to be, and perhaps he is, then shouldn't he find a way to make it work with Marcus Mariota in his offense? Shouldn't he customize his offense to his young franchise quarterback? I think we're asking the wrong question here. Is he a bad fit for the offense? Why the hell would the Titans keep their same exact offense in place that went 2-14 last year? That only won one of their last 15 games. You customize the offense around the first-round pick quarterback, period. Hutton Kyle Bears. Do you think the Bears should trade for Mariota or take someone else at 7 like Cooper or White? If the Bears ended up with Marcus Mariota in some way, shape, or form in this draft, I would probably cry. And in fact, I know I would cry. I would bawl tears of joy. And in fact, I'd probably make my lady record my live reactions, and I'm sure shit would go somewhat viral because it would hit me that deep and it would mean that much. I'm realistic, though. I know based off of the situation, it's very prohibitive for the Bears to move up from 7-2 to go get a guy like Marcus Mariota, nor is that necessarily maybe the best thing for them, unfortunately, because the bad thing about the Bears is even when they're bad, they're not bad enough for it to really make a difference. If they would really truly stunk up the joint this year and went something like 2-14, then maybe they could have had that second overall pick, just maybe, and maybe they'd already be able to draft Marcus Mariota, and I'd go buy my Marcus Mariota jersey, and I could talk about how great the future is and everything else. But yeah, in the meantime, at 7, if Cooper or White are there, you got to take one of them, I think. I think this whole notion that the Bears' biggest needs are on defense is foolish. The team went 5-11, and they had needs on offense, too. That offense was far from elite. And you've gotten rid of Brandon Marshall. It was a need before you got rid of Brandon Marshall, and now that you have gotten rid of Brandon Marshall, might be getting rid of Martellus Bennett, getting a number 2 wide receiver opposite Alshon Jeffrey to take pressure off of him is a big-time need. And I'd argue the number 1 need. The number 1 need. And K Hizzy 13 asks, who do you think is the best cornerback in this draft? I think it's Kevin Johnson from Wake Forest. I think when it comes to the corner position, it depends on what you like out of your corners. In terms of pure athleticism, it's probably Trey Waynes. In terms of polish, maybe it is a guy like a Kevin Johnson. In terms of overall upside and pure potential and versatility for the different types of schemes he can play, it might be a Marcus Peters from Washington. A guy that I really like, if he kept away from the peace pipe, if you will, is Jalen Collins from LSU, because he's almost as fast and athletic as Trey Waynes, but he's bigger and more physical. That might be the guy that I look at long-term that could be the number 1 corner out of this class, but he'll have to pass piss tests, which is no guarantee with him at this point. So I guess it depends. So thanks again to you guys for submitting your questions for this NFL Draft Q&A. I want to do another one after the NFL Draft is finally over, so make sure once the draft is over, you submit your questions. 3 days of NFL draft time. Interact with me on Twitter at pfspot_Schlegel. I'll talk to you later.